Is there anything that gets the juices flowing like a rivalry game? And our matchup is bitter. It has barbs and shots thrown on and off the field over the years. Welcome to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, home to the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. As we'll see a squad from the ACC, the North Carolina Tar Heels, taking on a fellow ACC opponent, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. For EA Sports College Football, I'm Reese Davis. They'll get this drive started from their own 26. They'll open the second half on the ground. And there was nowhere to go, just stopped in his tracks in the backfield. Not what they had in mind to start this drive. Here comes 2nd and 13. Motion from the wide receiver. Now the play fake. And the pressure gets there. And down he goes at the 18.
Man, this offense has been bad. How about the first play? Nowhere to go, nowhere to run, tackle for a loss. Second play, you get your quarterback sacked. And the third play, now we're sitting in 3rd and long, right where this defense wants to get us.
He gets across the 25, steered out of bounds at the 26. North Carolina has it back, and the Tar Heels so pleased to send the offense back out. They went 3 and out last time. Now they'll look for some plays that work. After the pickup of 9, it's 2nd and 1.
Defense is all about creating negative plays, and he does a really good job at the quarterback spot of not taking sacks. Like, that's a great job. He wants to throw the football. The clock goes off, he takes off, and gets a positive gain.
Just can't pull the trigger, and the quarterback is sacked at the 41.
Well, this is a quarterback who's not known for his running ability, obviously. We've seen him make some great throws, but mobility, that's probably not on your bingo card, and you saw it right there. He gets brought down for the sack.
And he tried to make something happen with his speed, but they stopped him short, and it'll bring up a 4th down.
And nowadays, you're not always going to get these quarterbacks.
Great place to start for this offense. Looking to throw on 1st down. Got him downfield. And he cruises his way to the house. Touchdown, Tar Heels! How efficient have they been as they extend this lead here in Week 5? Now they've got a little breathing room. They are in firm control of this game, guys, but you never want to let up in a rivalry game.
Because it only takes one play. We know.
Opening play of this drive comes from the 34. They'll try the right side. He'll go out of bounds at the 38-yard line as this offense patiently tries to work the ball out of its own end. Halfway there on first down, it's 2nd and 5. Looking to fire. Pressure coming. Catch in the middle, it's Green. Couldn't ask for much more there. A first down, and they're down to the 42.
Well, there are a lot of offenses out there that would probably be a little bit more conservative when you've got a lead like this in the third quarter, but when you've got the playmakers these guys have at the skill positions throwing the...
And the defense will corral the quarterback, and down he goes at midfield.
The defense just simply not fooled by the play action. Oftentimes, as an offense, you're hoping the run fake's going to slow down those pass rushers, but man, oh man, they had their ears pinned back.
Nowhere close on that one as he got drilled trying to deliver the football, and now they face third down. Trying to pick up a first down. On 3rd and long, you'll need to push it downfield. And the quarterback is toast back at the 35. They'll come out on this drive and let it rip. Got a man, it's Green. Turning it on. And they exploited that soft spot, and they get it down to the 35. 1st and 10. Wants to go up top on first down. Grabbed in the middle, it's Green. And the defense settled in to stop that one for a short gain.
And a really nice job by the wide receiver. You run a drag route, find space. They're in zone coverage. They're not covering man-to-man. Find a little hole. Look at that QB. Y'all get on the same page. You could tell they were, and that's why they got the first down.
Got it in the middle. It's Robinson. They make the stop, but he'll have enough yardage for a first down. The Tar Heels come to the line with a new set of downs. To the air on first down. That, friends, is a busted play. Incomplete.
And there's an example of what happens when the quarterback doesn't have a chance to set his feet. The pressure just forced him to have to work off schedule a little bit. And I think because of that, he wasn't able to be as accurate as he wanted to.
Intercepted deep in his own end. He was looking for room to return that, but he'll just hand it to the offense. They'll take over at the 8. They'll snap it from the 20 for the opening play of this drive. Wants to throw on first down off the play fake. Quarterback doing what he does best. He can move. Just gets rid of the football. Nobody to throw it to. It'll be 2nd down.
Good decision by the QB. You're outside the pocket. You're trying to find an open target. No one's open. Throw it away and live to play another day.
And he really needed to hold on to that one, but it was not loose, and 3rd down is coming.
Well, the offense has had their way all game long up to this point. Finally, the defense is able to make a play, and I'll tell you, after that hit, that receiver, he's going to be thinking twice about running that route again.
They've got the screen set up. They stay aggressive and push their way out to the 33, and it's first down.
A lot of smiles right now on this offense. They've got a big lead, and they're just having fun out there. They're still throwing the football. These receivers are still getting open. Pass protection is still great. And this quarterback's thinking to himself, man, I'm going to be padding my stats here in the second half of this game because everything we're dialing up is working.
Can't find his man as he took a shot trying to deliver that football, and it'll be 2nd down. After the incompletion, they go back up top. Finds the tight end. He'll work and weave his way all the way up to the 45 before going out of bounds. And the Tar Heels are moving quickly down the field. Wide receiver comes in motion. Off the play fake on first down to throw. Makes a connection. Really nice pickup on that one as they get it to the 36. It'll be first down. Here's this offense with a fresh set of downs. Motion from the back. Wants to throw on first down. Caught in the backfield, it's French. And he's almost to that first down marker there, saying he's a little bit short. They might want to bring out the sticks and measure, but it looks as if he'll be just short of the first down. Guys, we've reached the end of the period and North Carolina's on top. And this beatdown is close to completion as we've reached the end of 3. Let's take a look at how we got here. As we enter the fourth quarter, let's see if anything memorable can come from this one. So the final period starts with a second down play. They'll run it from the gun. The Tar Heels get enough for the first down.
And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep running the football. Everything is going according to plan right now. They've been able to stay on the field. They put some nice plays together, back to back to back, and they're bleeding the clock. This is exactly what you practice for situations like this. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Solid pickup of 4 on first down. It's 2nd and 6. Back to pass. Dumps it to the back. It's picked off, and they ruin the drive with a turnover. And they'll close in on him after a good return on the interception.
Never say that.
They'll christen this drive from the 28-yard line. They'll send the back in motion. Off play action on first down. Complete downfield. That defense got gashed, but they finally get him to the turf at the 47. A productive play is one that gets you at least halfway to another first down here on 1st and 10. Snags it inside the 20. The chunk plays that they love, and he takes it all the way down to the 10.
Well, this offense has just been dialing up explosive play after explosive play. That's a big part of why they have a huge lead at this point. And even in the fourth quarter with that lead, they are still taking shots. They are still being aggressive, pedal to the metal.
So after the huge chunk play, they've got it 1st and goal from the 10. Hand off from the shotgun. Wrestled down at the 8-yard line as they threaten deep in the red zone.
And these RPOs always put the defense in a bind. But listen, you give up the run, they get a short little gain, no harm, no foul.
Wants to fire on 2nd down. Got it! And he's into the end zone. Touchdown, UNC! They extend this lead, and it looks as if they are going to make it 2 wins in a row.
And honestly, it's been about complementary football in this game, right? We've seen this offense go up and down the field. They've been lighting up the scoreboard, but the defense has done a great job, too, getting off the field and putting their offense in really good position in this game. The head coach has got to love what he's seen on both sides of the ball today.
They come to the line for the first play of the drive, snapping it from the 21. He leaves it with his back. Solid run, picks up 6 and gets it to the 28.
And I know you can play these late game situations differently, but I love when you just stay physical. You run the football, you preserve the lead, you got great field position, you're in a great position to salt this clock away and get a W.
And this one will be stopped for no gain. And the Tar Heels are at the line looking to convert on 3rd and short. They'll run play action. Quarterback feeling the pressure, and down he goes at the 22. They'll start this drive with a pass. Quickly out to the tight end. And he was able to run through one tackle, but still only a modest gain. Look, you can't take away everything, right? So you give them that and rally and make a solid tackle.
Yeah, and a lot of times in zone coverage, I like when I can get all...
He tosses one high and deep down the left side. Oh, he dropped it. That deep ball was right on the money. You just have to make that catch.
And how about that? The mindset of the offensive coordinator. You got a really big lead. You're sitting really pretty, but I think this is just about rubbing your nose in it and trying to make bigger plays down the field, but the defense finally got to stop it.
They get enough rush, and it pays off. The sack.
Let's go. Right.
The give, and tick, 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 tick. A collision, and he stopped at the 27 after picking up one.
And here's the mindset if you're on offense. Fourth quarter, you've got a huge lead. Obviously, you're going to run the football, but just be aware of the clock. You don't want to snap it too quickly. You're probably just doing safe runs inside the tackles like you saw right there. You just got to execute. You got to be aware, but you've got this game in hand so long as you don't turn it over.
Guys out of the backfield now, it's not just run the ball downhill anymore. You got to be versatile. I got to be able to trust you in the pass game, and I got to be able to throw you the football, and you can do that right there. I know you're going to catch it, and I can depend on it.
That defensive front just... They'll start this drive going to the air. Got it in the middle, it's Green. Didn't pick up a lot there, moved it forward just a few. Now on second down. Wants to go up top. Here's the heat. He felt the heat, trying to get away, but down he goes. He'll lose a yard or two.
And man, it can be dangerous when quarterbacks get outside the pocket. They can stress your defense so bad. You better chase them. You got to keep running.
There he goes. And they'll pick up the first down and mark it at the 47.
He has been the go-to guy on offense all game long. And on a critical third down here in the fourth quarter, surprise, surprise, guess who they go to? That guy.
Wide open downfield. They are finding soft spots in this defense. He's got it down to the 25. And that comfortable lead they enjoy right now is not slowing down the aggression, not one bit.
Well, I think at this point, the coaching staff is just trying to continue evaluating their own players, and I don't hate the mindset. If there's time on the clock, keep trying to score.
Makes the catch.
And his offense continuing to spin the football, man, continuing to add to a great day. They've built this big lead. They've shown you a variety that they can do a lot of really, really good things. And I like it, man. Continue to throw the football. Continue to be who you are. It's the defense's job to stop you.
With the clock running, this should be the final play. They're going to ride this running back. And after the short run, the clock hits 0, and we are all wrapped up here. There's a long and storied history of great games between these two rivals, and this chapter adds another to that legacy.
Really impressed by the poise by the winning team as well here. They weren't overhyped in this game. They came out, they looked prepared, they were calm, definitely confident, David. They were able to go out and execute well enough to get this win.
And it's hard in these rivalry games with all the emotions running so deep. Like, you sometimes get overzealous. Sometimes you get too many penalties. It's hard to rein in your emotions, but they did. They kept it in check, and now bragging rights for a whole year.
Thanks so much for spending some time with us. For David Pollack and Jesse Palmer, I'm Reese Davis, and this has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.